I mean, really so much of kind of what we've heard about in this conference already kind of today is that we've seen the power of social media, of the internet. I've been just thinking about, just in the last 24 hours, of course, there's been the work fair, the focus on work fair. There's been the kind of the hashtag on Twitter about work fair, getting information specifically about, okay, which supermarkets, which shops are using work fair. So already so you can see, okay, right, good. I'm actually, in terms of getting the information out, also where can you shop? Well, actually, Aldi isn't using it, and I've always been a big champion of Aldi on Great Ancoat Street. So now, but again, knowledge. And it's that information. That's kind of what's the harm, I think, in terms of that's what the internet in all its manifestations does. It is about information. But to be able to get the information out, it depends on a free and properly functioning web. And already in terms of what Jim's been talking about, this is under threat. It is under siege. You know, when I come to talk about this, and and it's sort of the things that Jim's lining up. I'm going to line up a few more things to scare you. You sometimes think it's like, is this guy? And like, where is his tinfoil hat? This guy. And actually, I really resent that because you can go and research it. You can go and double source it. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take Jim's word for it. Okay, specifically, what we see is that these tools are incredibly powerful politically, and what's, from our perspective, is actually the tools that are now being set up to actually stop that flow of information. Example from this week. If this happened in this room right now, a copper comes walking in. I'm from the Serious Crimes Agency. Right. You there. Right. You are not going to speak anymore. Right now. And, by the way, all you people right around in there, and possibly even all the way around down here, I know you've been talking to him. And I can show that. And I can show that to you. And that means that you're probably, you can face up to 10 years jail. Whoa. And there were, big story. But actually, that is precisely what's happened on the online world this week. The government's very fond of saying at the moment that the online world should actually match the offline world. A music blog, sorry Sunny Humdale, blogs are getting censored. A music blog was shut down, allegedly for fraud. And this was precisely what happened on the 14th, on Valentine's Day. SOCA, which is the Serious Crimes Agency, put up a splash page, a front page saying, they took down the site, that they also put up a page saying that we not only, with a whole load of stuff which is actually legally wrong, but also saying, we've got your IP address, we can track you, we can monitor you. So that's actually the reality that we're facing right now. And this is completely extrajudicial. Okay, this is to say, well, we're dealing with some of the kind of issues that Jim's brought up with copyright infringement music. And we've been seeing there's a range of mechanisms to do with site blocking. We're very concerned about site blocking because it is about the sense of giving governments tools to actually close down sites. So that's why. So what you need to know is that the coalition digital rights policy is in omni-shambles at the moment about site blocking. On one hand, we're having these situations where, through injunctions or through actions like SOCA, that we're seeing people's access to sites being set down. On the other hand, Vince Cable is telling us we're not going to bring through site blocking provisions that were in the Digital Economy Act. If you don't know what that is, we can talk about it later. But it is essentially this. It's about, the point is about setting up the possibility for governments to control that information. Once you give governments these tools, they quite like using them. The big mistake, or the big kind of the stereotype is that for us in the Pirate Party, it's like it's not about free stuff. It's about freedom. It's about freedom of speech. That's what it's about. And we're warning that if you start giving the tools, which are either in terms of legislation or to groups or to agencies like SOCA, to actually essentially censor the net, then we are in a dangerous position. And not least is like, what on earth is a serious crimes agency? Set up to deal with gun crime, people trafficking. There are women out there right now that really need help. What are they doing? Dealing with an R&B blog. So it's saying, okay, well, you can all end up saying, well, maybe this is your kind of problem. It's actually nothing to do with us, particularly if it's just to do with music and films and so forth. No. What we can see is that there was a very good example from last year in the midst of the riots. When David Cameron finally came home from his holiday, one of the main things, one of the few concrete things that he talked about in the House of Commons was actually about the power of social media for ill. And actually essentially opening up the idea of social media blocking. Now, actually, on one level, he didn't really know what he was talking about. It's funny that already there are powers in terms of restricting people's use of social media and the internet. That's part of the REPA. It's also even part of it can even be as part of conditions of ASBOs, for example. But what it showed was what he said was widely interpreted as a call for for social media blocking. We saw Louise Mensch MP, for example, come out on TV and talk about turning off Twitter, and that she seemed to think it was possible to block individual hashtags, and it was all rather bizarre. But we now have lawmakers in this country whose response to when things are going wrong, or when things that are difficult issues, is not to ask the real questions, to try and understand what's happening. It's actually, I'd say, is to try and block the flow of information. Again, Jim mentioned the fact of the prevent strategy, in terms of terrorism. There's a new report that's come out dealing with terrorism. And it describes as one of the places where radicalisation can happen, and it says the internet. Does it just sound, cheeseburger site, long cats? What are you talking about? It's also, you have to be specific about what, and it's an extraordinarily badly written thing, but it's. But it's actually, one of the things is that we're constantly fed this narrative of the internet being dangerous. And, again, Jim's pulled out some of the things about, again, in terms of looking further back, in terms of kind of Tony Blair's objective, but also now we need to look at what where the coalition is right now. The coalition really has run out of ideas, that's what it seems to me. It only has two answers to every question. If it's good, cut it. If it's bad, blame the internet. That's basically where it is right now, where we are now. And particularly, we're seeing an alienation happening. particularly a lot of young people are very angry because, in terms of growing up the net natives idea, but actually don't feel they have a place to go. But also, I think why it's very interesting for me to be here in this context, because I don't characterise myself as left or centre left or any of those kind of boxes. And I think a lot of young people who are actually not apathetic, they're angry and upset, but also particularly because they care about the flow of information and also have seen the benefits, and also some of the benefits that that internet and social media can have in terms of political activism. And I've been warning for months now, we're actually getting to quite a dangerous situation. That it seems like there's very few democratic routes at the moment for people to express themselves, and particularly about these issues. And so, yes, it pushes people to direct action. Jim mentioned single actor. Do you know what it is? Yes, no, maybe no. Okay, essentially, because it's I wouldn't blame anyone for coming in and saying, really, Loz, we've no frigging clue what you're talking about, because it was an international treaty negotiated behind closed doors without democratic oversight. Essentially, it gives power. Essentially gives corporations huge power over the internet. We've all been warning that it opens the door for unsupervised communications blocking. It has. It's also one of those things that seems is one of those typical things that will affect the lives of all of us, but actually hasn't been done with proper scrutiny. But this is also where the hope is. I've heard a lot today about how can we get attention to our cause, and that it's very difficult. We're facing a lot of difficulties and bottlenecks. But even for some, this is a very difficult issue. It's like, okay, there we are. In Poland, they got it on the front page, and that's just again, it's not political parties. It's people getting out on the streets, connecting up, using social media, using the internet to connect up, and actually enlightening each other, share information, share the critical information, be enlightened, debate, take things down, criticise when things are wrong. We don't all get it wrong. So, again, 2012 is a completely different landscape to 2011. That's what we've got to remember. I mean, it's also, and that's what we've got to keep reinventing. That's what the web does. Something that's happened a few weeks ago was old hat. So if Occupy is no longer useful to you, forget it. Go and do something else. If it's still useful, that we need to be thinking about that in terms of quicker reaction times, because that's what the internet does. And I think that's what maybe that we could help with in a larger kind of campaigning sense. So I'm hopeful, because this kind of issue is really difficult to communicate. We've been talking earlier about how you need kind of human stories to connect with. This is really bloody difficult stuff to understand. But people can. You can help. You can communicate it. So there's actually lessons for all of us in that. And that we are seeing people coming and caring about these things. So, whose web is it anyway? It can be everywhere, and it's nowhere at all. It should belong to everyone, and yet it belongs to no one. And that's not utopian fluff. That's actually the technical principles that it's built on. But we're being told that it's a kind of Wild West, a lawless criminal world, and that it's radical. It's time to reclaim that word, I think. But also because it has this incredible power to disrupt, and also the power of information. We're told that something must be done about this, that internet governance is vital. No, we need to challenge that. And we're being told that the only legitimate model of the internet is a kind of commercial, corporate one. And I think that is where I think I can learn from a lot of you, and maybe people who've been working in unions and have a lot of knowledge on that level, saying that we need to think differently. And this is sort of just another specific example. The Soka site, the Soka takedown site, put up a link to a commercial music site on it. So this is it, that we now have a serious crimes agency promoting commercial music. Not if I can help it, and not if we can help it. This is going to be a fundamental battleground in this decade's politics. It's all drawn up. So on one level, it's the whole thing of time to ask not just what the web can do for you, but also what you can do for the web. I thank you.